Good morning. I'm Darrell Gunter, your host for Leadership on WSOU 89.5 FM and streaming on the net at WSOU.net. Well, I am so excited to have back one of my very first guests that I had back in 2009, Miss Leigh Kearney, Dr. Leigh Kearney, the founder of LPK Consulting and Osprey Leadership Consulting. Leigh, welcome back to the program.
Good to see you, Daryl. You're looking well, and I'm happy to be here.
And you are looking fabulous as well. And Leigh, I tell you, it's really good. When I saw on LinkedIn that you had just you're contributing a chapter to an edited volume, I said, "Well, it's the best excuse for me to have you back on to talk about this." So, if you could just share with our audience who maybe back in 2009 didn't listen to the show, if you could share with them a little bit about your education and background.
Sure. Well, this counseling psychology PhD that I have is a second career for me. I was a physiologist first and was working on a doctorate out at UC Davis in California when life sort of sent me to Colorado and I had to sort of remake myself. And always being fascinated with truth and wisdom and resilience and what makes good people better,
Right.
because my husband was an Olympic athlete, so I was exposed to all this excellence. And so I went back to school and wanted to figure out how you help the best to be better. Uh,
Nice.
so yeah, I've got a PhD in counseling psychology, but all the while I've known I wanted to work with driven people and
Right.
teams.
Yes.
So,
Well, I think the Boston Celtics could probably use you right now. But let's talk about your edited volume. What is the name of the edited volume and the chapter that you're contributing?
my particular chapter is called Driving Excellence and Transcending Mindsets in Leadership and the C-Suite. And this particular volume called Mission Matters, this is the 10th edition by Adam Torres. And what he does is take a lot of folk like me who are out there doing their own work, entrepreneurs, small businesses, and collects their expertise and puts it in this volume. It was great fun to work with them, really professional, and I was happy to contribute.
Very nice, very nice. And I once folks see it, I really appreciate the feedback that you got from your clients about how you've helped them. So when you think about your particular chapter, what is the prime objective of your chapter? And I know it's written for CEOs, but what type of are you angling for a particular type of CEO who needs this type of help?
Huh. It's an interesting question. There's a selection bias, Daryl. I mean, I think people who work with me are already wanting to know more about themselves and the work and people and teams. And all the best that I've worked with, I've been really fortunate to work with some very good people, are curious about something that I might know that can help them be better. So, no, this isn't for a particular CEO necessarily. It's more about the fact that I have to protect my clients. I can't talk about them in social settings. I can't use their names. Most of my social friends barely know what I do, Daryl, because I can't really talk about it.
Exactly. The confidentiality is just so important.
And and the fact that CEOs don't have all that many people who give them honest feedback and can talk to them about what they know they need to have a sounding board for. Some of those well, you've heard it, lonely at the top. It's really true.
Yeah.
So I started thinking about what it was that allowed the people I work with to trust me and what value they found in the relationships I'd have had over these decades, to
Mhm.
see if there was something I could share to share with others.
Wow. Wow. And so in building this confidentiality, um, what are the best practices to do that? If and forgive me if the question is too revealing about your secret sauce, I understand.
Well, I guess the confidentiality is pretty basic and simple.
Hmm.
Just don't use names and talk about people. uh, when there's anyone else in the room or when you think someone might hear you. It's pretty simple. If you think about having someone's back, you know how people talk about those who watch out for me and keep me safe. I feel like that. It's a little bit of parenting, mothering, if you will.
Yes, 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 yes. I'm curious, outside of yourself, do you find that a CEO does have a person within the company that they can have that similar type of relationship with?
I wouldn't say similar, but they have relationships, yes, with others in the company that they trust to give them good information, good feedback. But
Mhm.
one of the men who contributed to this chapter told me that he knew that even his most trusted colleagues couldn't be objective. They were subjective to a certain degree because they were part of the company. They had their own jobs and lives. So he understood the value of having someone like me on the outside who could see through the all of the issues that were going on and have enough experience in the C-suite and with business to understand some of the levers and some of the issues that they were struggling with to be a sounding board.
You know, I've always felt that, people will resort to their most basic fundamental behavior when they're under stress. For a CEO who has trusted advisors, but only up to a point, um, are there ways that they can help that individual to have a Johari's window effect where they'll see the side of themselves that they don't see, that maybe they could have the opportunity to address?
Mm. When I hear you say that, Daryl, it makes me think of the tools, the psychometric tools we use.
Mhm.
Uh, when I start a coaching engagement, I always use a battery of instruments that I would use for a selection assessment and have over the years, because with that battery, I can benchmark for the individual
Sure.
how they fit the general population of this unique group of individuals who are willing to take on all this responsibility.
Right.
And that provides one point. And then the fact that after a couple of decades talking to individuals like them, I
Mhm.
can do a compare and contrast
Right.
when that is appropriate. Uh, so I think there's two different ways to get it. How do you know?
Right. 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 I really enjoyed the anecdotal evidence that you provided in the chapter. One of the quotes that I remember very clearly was that a particular CEO felt that you were not telling him or her what to do. You were listening to themselves, and then they would actually hear what you were speaking about, and then they would come to a conclusion that was for them. How do you do that?
It takes a while to understand the human being. And I use the tools to have a number of hypotheses about what it's like to be this individual, in their job, in their life, what they want to accomplish, what matters to them, what their values are,
Mhm.
and do my very best to separate my own interpretations from what they think about themselves, their company, their team, their goals and what they're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
And in that regard, I hold that information in my head and can tell them honestly if this is the case. I
Right.
think it relates to the courage part in the chapter also. I can absorb myself in all that information and not worry about saying the wrong thing, not worry about whether the man or the woman is going to
Mhm.
like me or believe me, and really share as much as I can about how I see the information
Right.
based on what they're saying. I think that's what that man was saying. It's just reflecting, remembering, understanding who they are as
Mhm.
best I can.
You know, we're in a different day and age now, even from like 5, 10 years ago with all that's going on with social media, um, what's going on with folks being socially compliant or socially behaving. How do you view the role of the CEO, their roles and responsibilities now versus even 5 years ago?
But Daryl, I think it gets more complex every year. I have huge respect for anyone who's willing to occupy that seat and
Mhm,
sleep every night, knowing the responsibility they have on their shoulders for
mhm,
people and lives and industries. And I mean, it's incredible. It takes a very different human being to be willing to occupy that seat. So I have great respect for that. Now, the other part of your question is the complex is you've got to know what's going on in the world.
mhm,
Got to know what's happening economically, politically, geopolitically, geographically, climate, all of those factors. And
mhm,
then you have to think about your particular place in the industry, your organization in competition, and all those external factors. I'm sure I'm leaving some out.
mhm.
At the same moment, you're looking on the inside of your company and all the internal factors,
Right, right.
talent challenges, the culture challenges, the competition challenges, tech and product, and all this new content marketing and generative AI. I mean, think about how many factors there are, which is why it's not just the CEO, it's the CEO and her team.
How does the CEO, and you have just raised so many interesting points about the information that a CEO, a company needs. What are some of the what are some of the tools that you recommend to your CEOs to keep their staff primed for for success?
Keep their staff primed. I would say I tell most of the people I work with that it's best. One of the easiest ways is to expose yourself to people who don't think like you do. Expose yourself to people in situations who don't believe the same things you believe,
Mm-hmm.
who know more about anything. I mean, everything is so intertwined now. If you go have a friend who you or find a social group that you would never think of joining because their interests are different, that's where you should go. Challenge the diversity of mindset, diversity of
Yeah.
lifestyle, diversity of thinking, all diversity of values, to be able to check your own, number one. No,
Yes.
do I still believe what I thought I believed? But also to be able to understand the human condition, regardless of all those other factors.
Right.
That's super helpful when you think about judgment. And our CEOs that are running companies need to have good judgment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I remember when we first met, we were at an outsell dinner, and the topic of emotional intelligence came up, and I said something about it, and you looked over to me, and next thing we made that connection. I guess what's surprising to me is that even in today's time, we find there's a particular percentage of CEOs who lack emotional intelligence and continue to make those mistakes. Why is that?
Love this question, Daryl. In the respecting the differences category of a CEO, the ability to handle all the complexity and the way an analytic brain needs to work and
Mhm,
all the critical thinking they have to do, that doesn't necessarily beget a brain that has huge emotional intelligence. I mean,
mm,
think about it. You can have some, but you're never going to have as much as an individual who doesn't have to have all that ability to analyze and think critically. So it comes down to having someone you trust help you figure out what to pay attention to
mm,
when not focused on all those people issues.
right.
Teach you how to listen to your gut. Teach you how to use your own radar and not ignore the things that you're picking up. So it helps to have someone point it out.
Yeah. So in your chapter, you talk about professional trust and intimacy, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, but I like to go deeper into that. What is professional trust?
Yeah, trust and intimacy are closely tied, aren't they?
Hmm.
I think the pandemic pushed us into being able to use that word in a business context, intimacy. But if you think about it, Daryl, if you're a C-suite executive, if you're a CEO, you really have to be able to trust someone enough
Hmm.
vulnerable to check your thinking so that you can have the most robust
Hmm.
thought or decision or action or set of behaviors to do
Hmm.
the good that you say you want to do. So professional intimacy, professional trust, I think it's absolutely necessary if you're going to have a growth minded relationship. Be supportive,
Hmm.
value in a way that has meaning and matters for the coachee, the CEO, the person you're working with.
Right.
Did that answer your question?
It did, and I guess as a follow up to that, um, how long does it take you to establish that with your clients? I mean, of course, when they hire you, there's a certain level of intimacy and trust that they're giving, but I'm sure after you're engaging with them, it goes to deeper levels.
I learned a long, long time ago. I might have even said this to you back in 2009. When you work with the C-suite, you have to establish instant credibility.
Right,
And
right,
so I know that I have to start adding value right at the start. And I have to figure out how to connect,
right,
build
right.
an instant rapport. And it's just something that I don't even know where I learned this, Daryl, but
Mhm.
most of the people at the top who are working really hard and doing a lot and filling their lives and moving really fast are interested and interesting. So I try to adopt that in my own demeanor, be
Mhm.
interested in them and have something interesting to share that allows them to connect and want to ask me more questions to figure out if there's a good chemistry, if there's a good match, if there's a good opportunity to move forward.
Right.
Does
So
that
in your oh, yeah, absolutely. In your practice, is are these conversations once a week, twice a month, or
so when I work with someone at the top, they have open access to me.
okay.
I carry my phone, and many of them will text me when they say, "Do you have any time today?" Because they know that I can look at a text if I'm in a meeting, but I can't
Yes,
look at my email.
exactly.
So I will connect with them whenever they want me. And
Mhm.
formally, we will do a monthly face to face. Human contact is still critical.
Yes,
Video
yes.
helps, it does. And we fill in the interim, depending on what's going on, Daryl. If there's new talent showing up, if the company's just acquired a business and they're trying to integrate and reconcile the talent, if it's strategy season, if it's a board meeting, if there's an issue, yes, I make myself available. So to answer your question, I would say on average, it's coupled 2 or 3 hours a month,
Okay, okay.
scattered over
Mm.
various modalities.
Right, right, right. And I'm sure that's a very high quality 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, it's
You know,
fun.
I was, really, really, curious about this term, dariness. It's very interesting. How does it figure in your discussions with your executives, the word daringness?
I have to be daring. A coach has to be daring,
Mhm.
work at the top for an extended period of time. I think I alluded to this earlier when I said, I think over the years, one of the things I try to teach the colleagues that I work with when they're coaching and I do myself not worry about anything else. Don't worry about if they're done with you tomorrow or if you are using the wrong grammar. Just be there, 100% of yourself there. That's a pretty daring approach.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not protecting myself at all. I'm totally protecting my coachee and not really worrying about anything but being there for that individual.
Mm-hmm. And do you find it challenging sometimes where maybe the message that you have to deliver might be a bit hard for them to swallow, which
Yes.
which means that they might go, I disagree, Lee. I'm done. I'm moving on.
Oh, they disagree with me. That's part of being daring enough to toss it out there. And in the banter back and forth,
Mhm.
especially technologists and engineers, they love to have a good back and forth. And so do I. I mean, I'm not afraid of, there's another relative to daring. I'm not afraid of having that banter back and forth.
Right.
I think it's a good exercise for critical minds to be able to kick the tire a
Right.
few times, see if there's anything else in what they're trying to see, if there's anything else in my brain that they can see, you know. So yeah, that's a pretty daring position, I would say.
Okay. All right. And so I this I like for you to define agentic advisory. What is agentic advisory?
It's a cool term I stumbled on in the last year, Daryl. Mm,
Mhm.
If you think of agency, that's
Mhm.
where agentic comes from.
Right.
And you know that senior executives, as well as I do, have huge agency, a
Yes.
huge agency, and they're not going to do something someone else tells them to do. You and I wouldn't do that either. And so the advising, the thought process, the challenging, the supporting, whatever it is we're doing in the context of being good coaches and consultants for our clients,
Mhm.
is helping them be agentic and use their own agency.
For those who are not familiar with the word agency, we hear that all the time. If you're watching CNBC or watching Succession, what is agency? Could you define that for our listeners?
Oh, you're going to get my own version. I don't know what Webster's dictionary says, Daryl. I think it's having the integrity and the groundedness
Mhm.
to be able to act on what you believe is a solid movement forward, whether
Mhm.
words or actions or writing, being able to move forward.
Being authentic. Do you ever find it challenging to help a CEO to be their authentic self?
Like I said, there's a selection bias. There's certain people that decide to work with me, and all I have to do is remind them who they are.
Yeah. Mhm.
I do. And if you think about it, how many people in their lives beside their closest spouse, if I can use that word, or partner,
Sure.
remind them who they are. So
Mhm.
it's part of the intimate relationship, being able to do that for someone when they need it most.
Mhm. And when will this edited volume be published?
Well, it had its soft launch last week, and I guess it hit Amazon's new releases. It's number one on I know it
Wow.
hit Amazon's new releases. And then I will be on the cover of the hardcover version, which comes out in 3 or 4 weeks.
Nice. Very nice.
You can find volume 10 of Mission Matters on Amazon right now in paperback for the soft launch. And then the hard launch is in 3 weeks or so.
Beautiful, beautiful. Is there going to be a little bit of a book tour with this by chance?
Well, I haven't heard of that yet. I don't know. With social media, I'm sure we actually hit more people, don't we? With these
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's
more
right.
people. Yeah, reach more people.
Wow. Volume 10, Mission Matters. Um, what words would you like to give to our executive audience that's listening in on this interview about authentic, agentic leadership?
I think that trusting someone to be close and honest and have your best interests
Hmm.
helps a CEO, a C-suite executive do their best thinking. You know,
Hmm.
have them show up with their strengths in a discriminating way, not overusing the strengths that have got them where they are.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so I would say go ahead and take a risk and try it, but make sure there's good chemistry. You know, test it. Don't just land with the first one.
You know, I'm still waiting to hear your first TED Talk because you have a lot of wisdom to bestow about leadership. Have you thought about that?
Honestly, Daryl, my whole career has been about other people and not myself. So even doing these things, Daryl, is a stretch for this girl. So yes, the idea has crossed my mind. I think I would love to do it. I just haven't figured out how yet.
Okay. So at Seton Hall University, we have a leadership program for our students. And as because I still teach there on Tuesday nights. And in the Buccino leadership thing, they talk about we're ranked number one, you know. It would be great to maybe coordinate the introduction for you so that you can come talk to our young leaders at Seton Hall.
Wonderful. That sounds wonderful. I would love to.
And how can someone get in touch with you if they wanted to um, take take you on, have you take them on as a client?
Well, my website is Leigh at lpkleadership.com, and I'm on LinkedIn. My
Mhm.
Leigh Kearney, you can find me there. Um, I still have the same contact cell phone I've had for 3 decades, so you can find that anywhere you want. Is that the kind of information you're looking for, Daryl?
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, Lee is spelled Leigh.
Ah, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Because you know, it could go Lee or Leigh. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank our guest, Miss Leigh Kearney, Dr. Leigh Kearney, who is the founder of LPK Consulting and Osprey Leadership Consulting. And she has just published a chapter. And that chapter is titled again, Lee, in the
It's a
um,
long one, Daryl. I'm sorry, but the
Mission Matters.
book is Mission Matters, and the chapter is called Driving Excellence and Transcending Mindsets in CEO Leadership and the C-Suite.
Wow, that is great. Well, Lee, I want to thank you for coming on the program. And I look forward to having you back to talk about maybe the next chapter or your next book that you're going to write.
My pleasure, Daryl. It's good to see you're still out there working hard and doing good for lots of people.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up this week on Leadership with Darrell W. Gunter on WSOU 89.5 FM and streaming on the net at WSOU.net. Remember, if you have missed any of this broadcast, you can catch it on the podcast on podbean.com. Just look for Leadership with Darrell W. Gunter, along with the other 330 shows. Have a great weekend. But remember, leadership begins with you.